Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. I'm Zaihan Rashid of Happy Strong Family. I'm very happy today to have in our studios our very special guest, Brother Dr. Sabeel Ahmed, all the way from Chicago in the United States. Dr. Sabeel Ahmed is no stranger to the people in Dawah work, to people who've been engaged in interfaith work and other ways in which our large brothers and sisters in humanity have been introduced to this way of life called Islam. But for those of us who do not know, Dr. Sabeel Ahmed is a qualified medical doctor who, for the sake of uh, informing our larger audience the message of Islam, has devoted his life very generously and very courageously in a time like this to the message of Islam. So, having taken this advantage when he was visiting with us in Chicago, or from Chicago, I thought we'd ask him a few questions. First of all, I want to thank him very much, Dr. Sabeel Ahmed, for being here in the studio and for giving us your very precious time. Because of our very emotional situation that's prevailing in Canada and indeed in the world. But even before that, I have a few questions really related to how do people of the Islamic faith and people in faith in general, how do we engage with our neighbors, our co-workers, and people that are our friends perhaps, but who are our friends of another faith or no faith at all? What in your ways are some of the common ways in which we can engage our neighbors and co-workers?
Alhamdulillah. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Jazakallah khair for inviting. And this is a really important topic. How do we engage with our neighbors, our colleagues, our classmates? So, first and foremost, to engage with them and to introduce Islam with them, we need to realize it's not an option, it's an obligation. So, once we have that in our heart and mind, that's how our time, our effort, our passion, our resources goes into it. So, that's important. Second thing would be anything that we do in our life, it has to align with what does the Quran says and what was the Sunnah of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So when we look into how the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to engage with the people around him, even before he introduced Islam to them, he was a person of high caliber with a credibility in the society. So when he went to Mount Safa and he said to his people, when they were all standing there, do you believe do you believe in me if I say to you there's an army behind the mountain? They said, yes, we will believe in you. So we have to have a credibility with our neighbors, our colleagues. So we have to build a rapport. Just like a good salesperson, you need to have a good standing with the customers so they will agree with you and they will purchase it, right? So that's number one. Number two, it's important. In the Quran, it says, Surah Nahl, ayah number 125.
Yes.
Ud'u ila sabili rabbika bil hikmati wal mu'izatil hasanati wa jadilhum billati hiya ahsan. And the ayah continues, invite all to the way of Allah with wisdom and good preaching, and converse with them in ways which are best and most gracious. So we should not shy away from sharing Islam, but we should do it wisely.
Yes.
That's really important.
Yes.
Number three would be when we start to break the ice and engage with them, it's important that we should not overwhelm them with too much information.
Yes.
Because sometimes if they ask us questions, we get excited that now let me share Islam.
Yeah.
And we speak for half an hour, right? We give them this many books and this many flyers, this many website, a person will get overwhelmed.
Yes.
So we need to make them curious so they ask questions.
Yes.
Number four, lastly, we need to make Islam relevant for them.
Yes.
That what is there in them for Islam, how it is going to bring solutions to their problems, how it will make their life better, how it will give guidance and discipline, right?
Yes.
And lastly, obviously, we also need to be good role models.
Yes. Zakallah. That's excellent. Very relevant to what you said when you said role modeling. I remember one of my neighbors when we had the pandemic of COVID. I remember him saying, hand washing was never a thing that I thought much of, but I learned from a Muslim neighbor, in fact, a Muslim coworker, that you guys wash your hands 5 times a day. That must be very soothing in this time and day. And I realized, Dr. Sabeel, that sometimes simple conveyance of a practice that has become a part of our life is so beneficial for people who may not have seen Islam, as you were quite rightly saying in the open house that we had a few minutes ago, that relevance of things comes to you when you realize this is actually beneficial to humanity.
Yeah.
And so I take that point completely. On that line, then,
Can I give you two quick,
yes, by all means.
two stories
That's the
comes to
whole
my
idea.
mind.
Yes.
One thing is that as COVID was starting,
Yes.
people were conscious about hygiene and the distancing and whatnot.
Yes.
We had a big billboard in Chicago,
Yes.
and the message was washing of hands, distancing, and not going to places and not coming from places.
Yes.
Means all the guidelines.
For sure.
And we mentioned that these were coming from the 7th century.
Yes.
So that itself is going to draw people in.
Yeah.
We thought the CDC just gave the guidelines. They're coming from 7th century.
Yes.
So it will make them think, maybe there is something in there.
Yes.
Second thing, when you mention about, hygiene and washing of hands, and your friend was surprised, in the hospital, there was a colleague. So one Muslim, as he used to go to the washroom, he always used to carry a big bottle, right, of water. And the colleague became really curious. You're going to the washroom break. Why do you have this? Are you going to go and drink up there, right?
Right.
And the colleague, the Muslim person, he mentioned,
Yes.
it's part of the hygiene that after we are done,
Use the washroom.
We have to wash ourselves.
Yeah.
Why don't you try it next time, right? And he tried. He felt so comfortable and so fresh,
Refreshing, yeah.
so freshened.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, he converted to Islam.
MashaAllah.
Allah Akbar, right?
Yeah.
Simple things like that, we should not shy away, because anything Islam wants us to do, there's always a benefit for the society.
Yes.
So I thought,
excellent.
that's relevant.
That's very relevant. And on the same lines, I remember in our last open house in one of the local mosques, somebody said, I've always wondered when Muslims do this, going from straight standing to all the way down, how that must exercise the body very regularly, 5 times a day. And I said, it's interesting you should say that, but really that's probably the only posture I know that literally moves every joint in your body. And there's not going to be very many things that will protect you from arthritis, etc. Anyway, I digress. So another question I have, brother Dr. Sabeel Ahmed, is the roadblocks that often are, if you like, hindering the message of Islam to the wider community. Things like violence, for example, things such as hijab, and without engaging you into a huge conversation, are there some tricks that we can use, or not tricks maybe, are there some relevant points in which we can avoid a huge conversation but still allow enough information so people can be curious and say, well, there's more to it than meets the eye?
Sure. So what are the roadblocks to Dawah?
Yes.
One roadblock is, people may not know it's an obligation.
Yeah.
Okay. So we need to educate them.
For sure.
It's as much an obligation as praying 5 times a day, because if you look into the life of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, if we can define his mission in one sentence, it is to share Islam.
Yeah.
As simple as, not only his life, by the way, every prophet, every messenger.
Yeah.
No new prophet is to come. Angels are not going to be sent down to knock at the doors and let the non-Muslims know this is the truth. It is us who are supposed to convey the message.
Yes.
Secondly, we need to know the answers to the common questions people may be asking.
Yes.
Because I would not be comfortable sharing Islam if I know that people would be asking me about Palestine or hijab or jizya or jihad, right? As they did today in the open house. That was exciting. I'm glad they did. So it's like someone going out to perform surgery.
Yes.
If they have the proper attire and the knowledge and the team and the equipments, they would be comfortable, they would be successful.
Yes.
In the same way, we need to make sure that we arm ourselves with knowledge.
Yes.
Not only arm ourselves, we need to make sure that we prepare ourselves.
Yes.
We need to practice ourselves, right?
Yes.
That's number 3. Number 4 would be make them curious by saying a few things.
Yes.
Once they're curious, they will ask more questions.
Yes.
For example, in Chicago, we had an open house and the question was jihad.
Yes.
And there were police officers up there sitting in the front row, right? I mentioned, do you guys know, to the audience,
Yes.
that they do the jihad every day?
Yes.
People were surprised. Really? They do jihad? I hope, So that makes people realize, it kind of makes them think, maybe jihad is something else.
Yeah.
And last but not the least, it's important for us to make sure that we have to make Islam relevant for the people.
Yes.
So for that reason, it's important for us to make videos and brochures and
Yeah.
contents
Yes.
about how Islam can bring relief to the social issues.
Yes.
Gambling, the youth problem, atheism, agnosticism, gambling, suicide, homicide. The major problem, there should be like brochures and contents and videos.
Yes.
So all of these combined together is going to empower a Muslim to confidently, comfortably, eloquently, inshallah, to
Inshallah.
engage with the people.
Yeah. No, I really like that concept where people start to see the relevance of Islam in their life. You were, I was making notes of what you were saying about the sanctity of a mother, for example. I mean, in this part of the world, I'm sure the US is not much different. The family has broken down in a big way. There are 50% of people, unfortunately, do not have two parents in the home. There is also domestic violence. There's the issues of intoxicants, etc. And so, like you, I also am very keen on inviting people to say Islam is not just a method. I was very glad that you clarified the method of worshiping, because I think for a lot of people, worshiping is indeed just those 5 prayers or going to the church or going to the mosque on a Friday. And I think the elaboration of that to say actually worship is obeying the laws of God at all times, including, as you said, going to the washroom, including even going to sleep. There are laws and regulations that we follow, and they're so beneficent. So on that same line then, since another issue seems to be, at least in my experience, I don't know about the US, but here one of the situations also is that the masajid, the mosques, don't seem to have a regular, if you like, blueprint of some sort to say we are going to have these regular events that will encourage our neighbors to come and participate on a regular basis. And today, for example, right now we're in October, Islamic Heritage Month is here, and yet, unfortunately, to my knowledge, very little is being done really to make use of this excellent opportunity to invite non-Muslims to be able to see the rich heritage that Islam has to offer. This is beyond the worship part. This is now practical knowledge. I mean, one of the gentlemen who was in the mosque earlier on, he said, I had no idea that camera had anything to do with Islam.
Cameras.
Cameras.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
the poster board that you have.
Yes. Yeah, so we actually brought all
Yeah,
these
yeah.
Islamic Heritage Month posters. And I just like your views on how have you, in your experience, dealt with this, what I called a self-imposed restriction
Yeah,
on
yeah.
the mosques becoming the hubs of Dawah activity for our Muslim and non-Muslims primarily, but also for our Muslim brothers and sisters. Because again, not to prolong this question too much, but we have serious issues with our youth. We have a huge problem with our youth are simply, I wouldn't say they're giving up Islam, but they're definitely disenchanted and cool about Islam. So I'd like your views on that also. I know I'm pushing
Youth
you a
and
lot.
then the non-Muslim neighbors.
I'd like you to comment on both if you could.
Sure,
please.
sure. You know, there is a Pew research that came out that 78% of the non-Muslims who have a negative view about Islam,
Yes.
they have never met a Muslim.
Right.
Their negative view goes down to 28%
And
if they met a Muslim.
wow, mashallah.
So it's important that we engage with the non-Muslims, especially as a neighbor, as a colleague, as a classmate.
Yeah.
For them to also come to the masjid is
Yes.
equally important, because they may have fear of the unknown.
Yes.
What may happen in the masjid?
Yeah.
You know, even though we don't have time, but quickly, in Chicago, as I was driving by a masjid, there was a big procession, a big protest by non-Muslims with the US flags.
Oh,
I was thinking, what's going on? So we called the masjid, the imam,
yes.
and the imam, he mentioned that there is a rumor going on in the neighborhood that masjid has weapons of mass destruction in the basement.
Wow.
So what I advised to them, okay, why don't you bring some donuts and pizza and invite these people, take them to the basement?
Yes.
And they did.
Yes.
And these people, they came with the flags inside the masjid.
Yes.
You know, people were doing hifs, people were praying, and, you know, sessions were going on.
For sure.
At the end of the day, they became so, ashamed that, they were protesting a peaceful masjid, that they dropped the flags, they apologized, they hugged, they had a handshake, and they left. So it's really important that, we need to make sure that we have masjid open houses.
Yes.
Secondly, there are so many schools, so many colleges, so many churches. We should send out letters from the masjid that masjid is open. You can bring the
Classes.
yeah, you can bring the classes for the tour.
Yes.
Your humanities class, your world religion class, and social study. Bring them to the masjid, and the masjid, every masjid should have a good speaker.
Yeah.
So we need to create the speakers.
So we'll have to ask you to come more often.
No, all the youth. Okay, so we can come to the youth too.
Yes.
So we need to make sure that every masjid should have a speaker who is also qualified, or someone is qualified with comparative religion, with atheism, and with the social issues, because these are the questions. So once people come and see,
Yes.
many a times fear of the unknown goes away,
Yes.
and now they have not a negative, either a neutral or positive feeling.
Yes.
And then once we introduce Islam to them, they can be more receptive, inshallah.
Yes. Jazakallah khair.
I
That's
just came
excellent.
from UK. In the UK, what they do is, so 2 weeks ago I was in UK.
Hmm.
Every year, the whole UK, all the masajis, they do like one combined masjid open house.
MashaAllah.
They advertise, the media comes and the media shows, and that they amplify. Many non-Muslims, they come. So we
Yes.
need to start something here in
Similar.
Canada too.
Yeah. No, that's excellent. I
So
didn't
there are
know
many
that.
ways. Yeah,
That's
alhamdulillah.
excellent. Well, I want to thank you very much for this very
Alhamdulillah.
valuable conversation and this insight into what is really, I believe, issues that all of us, particularly people here up in Canada, need to address. And I also wanted to thank you for the excellent presentation that you did earlier on, because I think these events cannot be done frequently enough for us to dispel some of these things that I think have really laden the communities that live around these masajid. And there's a huge numbers. I mean, in the Toronto area alone, there are almost 70 to 100 masajid. So
Yes.
we are not in small numbers.
Hmm.
So if I could ask you to give 1 minute message to people that you feel would benefit from perhaps inviting their friends and fellows to Islam, what would that 1 minute message be? If you could give us a 1 minute message about how people invite others to Islam.
Okay. Suppose if your colleague says, you know what, I'm interested in Islam, tell me what Islam is. I only have a short time. I will say to them, OMG hi.
Okay.
OMG hi. So if you have that, so O stands for the oneness of God. So you introduce who Allah is.
Yes.
He's not Trinity, he's not idols, he's one God with these beautiful names.
Yes.
The M stands for the messengers.
Right.
So he wants to guide humanity. So he did not came down, he appointed messengers and prophets from the humans.
Right.
Then you give the names of some of them.
Yes.
And then you mention that every single one of them, they came not with a new faith, they came with one faith,
Yes.
which is Islam, submission to the Creator.
Excellent.
OMG. G stands for the guidance from the Quran and the Sunnah.
Okay.
If a person is African American, I will tell them about how Islam brings unity, equality of all the races.
Yes.
So we have to package the message.
Yes.
The OMGH, H stands for the hereafter.
Oh, yes.
Give them analogy. In the schools, you have evaluation. At the job, you have evaluation. There's a grand evaluation of every human on the day of judgment.
Yes.
If they agree with all of these, if they understand with all of these, then you do the I, OMGHI. I stands for invitation.
Oh, yes.
Even if they don't convert, they will understand Islam. At least they cannot complain against us on the day of judgment that nobody told them.
Yes.
So OMG high is a simple technique that I often use when
Excellent.
people ask me about Islam.
I want to thank you so much, Dr. Sabeel Ahmed, for your very valuable time.
Alhamdulillah.
I want to also thank you from the behalf of the Happy Strong family and all of the masjid here for your time and the efforts you're doing. I can only say that we very much envy your efforts and hope that we can
Alhamdulillah,
repeat some of
accept
the
it.
work that you're doing. I want to thank you once again. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. And I want to thank all our audience for watching. Inshallah, Jazakallah khair. Thank you so much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Walaikum salam wa barakatuh. May Allah reward you and the team. MashaAllah. Give good health to you and to the team, and help us to convey Islam to humanity and bring that peaceful social change. Ameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.